The Baltimore Ravens had a pretty good 2020 season. Now, they certainly weren't as dominant as their 2019 selves, but they did go 11-5, and they did enjoy their first playoff win in the Lamar Jackson era. And in today's video, let's talk about what's next for this team and what they can do to improve in this year's offseason. Before we do get started though, if you guys are new and enjoyed the content on here, make sure you guys hit that like button, also subscribe, as we are on the road to 500 subscribers, and so you do not miss out on any new videos. And once we hit our goal of 500 subscribers, I will do a reaction to my first 2 videos ever, and I will also do a Q&A. And the daily shout out goes to the Benchwarmers, so go ahead and make sure you guys go ahead and check them out. The link to their channel is in the description below. But with that being said, let's just get this video started. And I want to start out by talking about the Ravens roster, and Lamar Jackson is the first player I want to talk about. And Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a great dual threat quarterback, and I mean, he's just great. He had 2,557 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, and had 1,005 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins is the next player I want to talk about. And J.K. Dobbins, he had a really good rookie year. Now, he certainly was not an offensive rookie of the year candidate, like at least the top one, but hey, he was still pretty good with 805 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, and he averaged 6 yards a carry. Up next, let's talk about Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards, I mean, he's a pretty solid running back next to J.K. Dobbins. I mean, they got pretty good running backs. He had 723 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 5 yards a carry. Up next, let's talk about Marquis Brown. Marquis Brown had a pretty good year. I mean, it's not exactly amazing though, as many people thought he would have an amazing breakout, DK Metcalf-esque year this year. I mean, people thought he could be even better, but he still had 769 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. Mark Andrews is the next player I want to talk about. And Mark Andrews, I mean, he's a pretty solid player. He had 701 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, and caught 66% of his targets. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell did have a down year, but the guy is still a really good player. Now, he is aging, but hey, he's still a pretty good player. He's probably like maybe my favorite player on this team. I really like him. I'm from Denver, so yeah, there's that. And he's also from Denver. He had 4 sacks and 13 pressures this past year. Patrick Queen is the next player I want to talk about. And Patrick Queen, well, he had a really solid rookie year with 1 interception, 2 passes defended, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 13 pressures. Up next, let's talk about Yannick Ngakoue. Now, Yannick did not exactly have the most impressive stats with Baltimore, as he only played 9 games. But he is still a really good player, and he will be a free agent this year. But hey, he's still a really good player. Up next, let's talk about Matt Judon. Matt Judon is a pretty good player. Now, the guy did not have as good of a year compared to 2019, but he still had 6 sacks and 32 pressures this past year. Up next, let's talk about Tyus Bowser. Tyus Bowser, I mean, he is one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL, as he's a really good coverage linebacker. He had 3 interceptions and 5 passes defended this past year. Marlon Humphrey is the next player I want to talk about. And Marlon Humphrey is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He had 1 interception, 11 passes defended, and he had 8 forced fumbles, which led the league in that category. Marcus Peters is the next player I want to talk about. And Marcus Peters, he had a pretty good year. I mean, he's not exactly a top tier cornerback like Marlon Humphrey, but he's still a really good player. He had 4 interceptions and 9 passes defended this past year. And the final player I want to talk about is Chuck Clark. Chuck Clark is not in the upper echelon, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jamal Adams, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates tier of safeties, but he's still pretty good, as he had 1 interception and 4 passes defended this past year. And that will wrap it up for the Ravens roster. Now, the Ravens, they have a good team. I mean, there's a reason why they went 11-5 and won a playoff game. They have a pretty good offense, a really good defense, plus they got a pretty good head coach. However, they are not without their issues. As well, they have a pretty good offense. Well, that's mainly due to their rushing attack, which ranked first in the NFL. Their passing attack, that ranked dead last in the league. The receiving core really has to improve. It really does, okay? Marquis Brown, in my opinion, I mean, he's a pretty good player. However, he has way more of a number 2 receiver than a number 1 receiver. And I don't know if he is going to be, I just don't know if he's going to be that good. But I would definitely keep him, as he can be a very solid building piece. He can be a really solid contributor to this team. That's really what I want to say. Greg Roman has also been, a bit of a root when it comes to this team's issues. Now, a lot of Ravens fans do not like Greg Roman, and I cannot blame them, okay? Greg Roman, I might fire the guy, considering the guy that, he has a really predictable offense, and that was a big issue, in the beginning of the season, before Lamar Jackson got the virus, which I'm not going to exactly say, because I feel like YouTube might, punish me for that. Anyways, but yeah, that's really my thoughts on Greg Roman. I think I might fire him, as the guy is not exactly amazing. Not only that, but they do have some drama going around with Orlando Brown Jr., as the guy did play left tackle for a good portion of this season due to the fact that Ronnie Stanley was out for a majority of the year, and it seems like he wants to stay at that position, as he did request a trade since he wants to play left tackle full-time rather than moving back to right tackle. Now, I'd definitely like to keep him if I'm Baltimore, as the guy is a really good player, and I'm sure a lot of Baltimore fans would love to keep him, considering how good of a player he is. But at the same time, if things get out of hand, then I would, to the point where it's kind of unfixable, then I might actually trade the guy. You really shouldn't have anything, I wouldn't really want a guy that's gonna be a straight up cancer to the team, and I don't think the guy is like a god-awful person, and I'm not trying to imply that he is a, flat-out cancer to the locker room, but at the same time, if you really do have to, trade Orlando Brown. Plus, you can get some good value for him. Some trade partners could include the Los Angeles Chargers, the Seattle Seahawks, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins. Those are some trade partners, for Orlando Brown Jr. Now, getting to the fun part, free agency. Baltimore will have $26 million in cap space this year, and that is not too bad. If they were to cut Calais Campbell and restructure Tavon Young, they could get up to $30 million, which is pretty decent. And if they were to trade Orlando Brown, they would get another $3 million. So that could get them to $33 million in cap space, which that's actually pretty good. Unfortunately, Matt Judon, Yannick Ngakoue, Tyus Bowser, and Willie Snead will all be free agents, and that is not exactly too ideal. I do not think they will get all of them back, but if they can bring back at least 2 of those guys, that would be pretty good. Get one Yannick or Judon back, get one of those guys back, plus Tyus Bowser would be pretty nice to have back, and Snead, he could be, you don't exactly have to bring him back, but he could be, a decent part of this offense. Now, getting to the free agent targets, they definitely should target a good wide receiver in this class, and this wide receiver class, it's very good. They could target a guy like Allen Robinson or Corey Davis or Kenny Golladay. They would be pretty good options. And that's really what I have to say for the wide receiver position. They really do need to get a number 1 receiver. And Allen Robinson does seem like he wants a lot of money, but he kind of deserves it. But those are some free agent targets for the wide receivers, and maybe they could just build a solid all-around core by getting like a Will Fuller or a Marvin Jones. But that's what I have to say for the wide receiver core. Now, some, right tackles they could target, assuming Orlando Brown is traded and they don't get a tackle in return, could be someone like Kendall Lamb or Taylor Moton or Darrell Williams. They would be pretty good if they were to trade Orlando Brown and did not get a right tackle in return. Justin Houston, Romeo Okwara, and Bud Dupree, plus Kyle Van Noy and Levante David and Hassan Reddick would be some pretty good free agent targets too. Now, those targets are assuming Baltimore, assuming Yannick Ngakoue and Matthew Judon do end up leaving, and Tyus Bowser also leaves. Now, if they were to retain one of these guys, these wouldn't be as big of needs, but that's really what I have to say for the free agents. Target a wide receiver, plus target a right tackle if you just trade Orlando Brown and don't get a right tackle in return. And if you do end up losing out on Tyus Bowser and Yannick Ngakoue plus Matthew Judon, fill those holes by, targeting some of the guys I didn't mention. Not only that, but Baltimore will own the 27th pick in this year's draft. They should definitely look to improve any weaknesses they have, and some draft targets can include someone like Kadarius Toney or Rondale Moore or Rashad Bateman or Terrence Marshall Jr., as they are, they really should improve that wide receiving core, and they would be very big helps to this team. But if the receiver core is, pretty good, then someone like Trayvon Jenkins or Jalen Mayfield would be good since, if they were to trade Orlando Brown, again, and they don't have a right tackle in return, they would be pretty good replacements. But that is kind of all I have to say, for this team. And to wrap up this video, the Ravens got a really good team. And if they can, fix those issues and, bring back important free agents and keep a good team around Lamar Jackson, I have no doubt in my mind this team will be a contender for, this year and for years to come. But with that being said, that will wrap up today's video. Make sure you hit that like button if you guys enjoyed, as it really helps out the channel. Also, make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the content on here, so you do not miss out on any new videos. Plus, we are on the road to 500 subscribers, and once we hit our goal, I will do a reaction to my first few videos ever, and I will do a Q&A. Also, go ahead and check out the Benchwarmers. The link to their channel is in the description below. But with that being said, I'm out, you guys.